Okay. So again, let us familiarize ourselves with the different particles of atom using the periodic table of elements. So again, please get your periodic table and even calculator for the computation. Okay, so again, let us recall, we have the AZPEN. So, pag sinabi nating AZPEN, so may mga corresponding term for each letter. Okay, so let's start with letter A. So, what does letter A stand for? So, pag sinabi nating letter A, it stands for the mass number. Okay, if you're going to look at your periodic table, sa periodic table niyo, we actually call it as atomic weight. Okay, so as we all know, I have already discussed that yesterday, that the atomic weight or the idea of the atomic weight was given during the 18th century by John Dalton. Okay, so how are we going to compute for the mass number or yung tinatawag nating atomic mass? But let us be familiarized na ang common na ginagamit natin, no? Ang madalas kong gagamitin, no, when we compute is mass number. I am not using the atomic weight, but commonly I use mass number. Okay, so to get the mass number, okay, so it is basically you're adding the number of protons with the number of neutrons. Okay, so sabi natin kahapon, pag sinabi natin protons, these are positively charged particles. Pag sinabi natin neutron, it's either positive or negative charges. Okay, so that is letter A. For letter Z, that is what we call the atomic number. Okay, so para mas madali nating matandaan at makompute ito, is tandaan lang natin the atomic number of an element is also the same as having the number of protons, which is also equal to the number of electrons. So ibig sabihin, kung ano ang atomic number ng isang element, yun din ang number ng protons at saka ng electrons niya. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say we have oxygen. Okay, so pakitingnan nga ang inyong mga periodic table. What is the atomic number of oxygen? Anyone? What is the atomic number of oxygen? Atomic number. Anyone? Atomic number. May mga periodic table ba kayo dyan? What is the atomic number of oxygen?
8, ma'am.
Yes, very good. 8. Ibig sabihin, kapag ang atomic number, very good, Robles, and yung sumagot kanina, okay, very good. So the atomic number of oxygen is 8. Ibig sabihin, kung ano ang number ng protons at saka electrons at saka atomic number, iisa lang. So ibig sabihin, kung ang atomic number ng oxygen ay 8, ibig sabihin, ang protons niya at ang electrons niya ay pareho lang na 8. So all of them, atomic number, protons, and electrons are the same. Pare-pareho silang 8. Okay, so I hope you get it. So pag ang atomic number ng isang element, yun din po ang number ng protons at ng electrons. Okay, so that's it. So pag sinabi nating AZPEN, so I said, A stands for the atomic mass, no? O tinatawag nating mass number. And then Z stands for the atomic number. And then PE stands for protons and electron. So what is now letter N? Ang letter N naman natin stands for the number of neutron. Okay, so paano naman yun? Pag sinabi naman nating number of neutrons, it's simply computing the number of the mass number, isusubtract natin sa atomic number. Okay, so I'm going to give an example para mas madali nating mapicture yung sinasabi nating AZPEN. Okay, so I'm going to give you some computation. Okay, so balikan natin si oxygen. Sabi natin kanina, si oxygen, sabi nyo, ang atomic number niya ay 8. Ito ngayon ang itatanong ko sa inyo. What is daw the mass number of oxygen? Okay, very good. Cruz, the answer is 16. Okay, so basically, Okay, very good, alkaide, 16. So, ibig sabihin, bakit ganito ang pagsusulat ko? Actually, itong pagsulat ko na to is an example of element notation. So, I'm just recalling the concept yesterday. So, this is what we call the element notation. Okay, so ito po yun. So, ibig sabihin, when you are writing the element notation, please try to remember that this one is what we call the mass number. Yan. So, lagi po natin, tatandaan po natin ha, ito po ang lagi nyo tatandaan. Ang mass number natin, when you are writing an element notation, it should be rounded off into a whole number. For example, if the value of your oxygen is 15.99 dyan sa inyong mga periodic table, then you have to round it off. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan mo siyang, kasi it's 15.99, so it should be 16. So, ibig sabihin, you have to write it in a whole number. Yun po ang pagsusulat natin ng element notation. And then, the number below the mass number is what we call the atomic number. Okay? So, take note po ito. Okay? Now, at least you have a big picture on how to write the element notation kasi this will be part of our activity later. No? So, ganito lang po ang tatandaan natin. You write the chemical symbol. So, tandaan lang natin, ang chemical symbol always starts in a capital letter. Now, if dalawa yung letters niya, so it should be written first in a capital letter followed by the small letter. And then, on top of it, on the left uppermost part would be the mass number. Okay, so sabi ko nga kanina, reminder, okay, dapat po naka-round off po siya. Okay, into a whole number. And then the number below this is the atomic number. Okay, so ito nga po yun. Sabi ko nga, how are we going to compute for the number of protons and electrons as well as the neutron? Okay, so let us now compute. Okay, so let us try to go back with the principle. So sabi natin, kung ang atomic number natin ang 8 sa oxygen, so definitely the number of protons and electrons are the same. So therefore, sabi nyo nga kanina, ang atomic number ng oxygen ay 8. So therefore, ang protons niya at ang electrons niya ay 8 pareho. Nakukuha po ba ako? Section A and B. Nakuha po ako. Ulitin ko po kung ano po ang atomic number natin, yun din po ang number ng ating proton at saka electrons. Nakukuha po ba ako? Nakuha
Yes,
po ako?
ma'am.
Yes, okay, very good. Now, ito ngayon yun. How are we going to compute for the number of neutrons? So sabi natin doon sa concept na binigay ko sa inyo, the number of neutrons, we can get the number of neutrons by simply subtracting the mass number to its atomic number. Okay, now let us now compute. Isusubtract lang po natin yan. 16 minus 8 kasi ito po yung mass number natin. Isusubtract natin dito sa atomic number. So what is now the answer? 16 minus 8. What is the answer?
8.
Oh, 8.
Oh.
Okay. So, even Alcaide, Gonzalez, yan. So, the answer is 8. Okay. So, I'll give you another example. Let's have sodium. Yeah, let's have sodium. So, what is now the mass number of sodium? Will you please get your periodic table?
11.
Mass number muna tayo. What is the mass number of sodium? Okay, yes, Alcaide, the answer is 23. Okay, now, how about the atomic number of sodium? Okay, very good, Gonzalez.
11.
11. Cruz, Alcaide, and Gonzalez. So, the answer is 11. Okay, so para madali nating makuha, let us again compute the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons. Okay, so sabi natin, kung ang atomic number ng sodium is 11, definitely the protons will be 11 and then the electrons will be 11. However, in computing for the neutrons, we need to subtract the mass number to its atomic number. So let us now subtract. 23 minus 11, what's the answer? Yan. So I'm actually getting answers here. So we have Gonzales, Reyes, and Alcaide. So we have 12. Okay. So subtract lang po ang mass number. Yes po. Darwin, yes. Isusubtract lang po natin. Okay. So subtract lang po natin. So therefore, that is already the number of neutrons. Okay. So yun po. Okay, next. I'll give you another example para at least klaro lang po sa atin. Okay, how about nitrogen? What is the mass number of nitrogen?
14.
Okay, I'm actually getting answers here.
14 po.
Okay, so we have 14. Very good. So you have 14. How about the atomic number?
7.
7.
Ang dami mga sagot. Okay, we have
7.
7. Okay, now to get the number of protons and electrons, so ilan ang proton at saka electron natin?
7.
7. So parehong 7. Okay, now to get the neutron, we're going to subtract this only. So 14 minus 7 will give us, ayun ang mga sagot nila. Okay, so the answer is 7. Nakukuha po ba ako doon? Nakukuha
Yes,
po ako.
ma'am.
Okay, so klaro po tayo doon. Okay, so at least klaro po ako dito sa ating para if you're going to do the activity later, then at least you have already the idea on how to do it. Okay, so next, as I continue, okay, so as I continue, ito po yun. Okay. Okay. Okay, so ito naman. What if an atom has a charge? Ito po yun. Kasi kanina, what I have introduced to you, these are elements, katulad ng sodium, oxygen, nitrogen. These are all neutral. Okay, so it's either positive or negative. So, ibig sabihin, neutral lang siya. But what if you're going to look at my presentation, no, what if an atom has charge? Yan. The question is, how are you going to get the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons? Okay, so ito naman yun. So, as a continuation, since you have already an idea on how to get the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons, so let us try to apply now the concept. So, paano kung maka-encounter kayo ng element na merong mga charges? At anong tawag dito sa mga charges na ito? Okay, so these charges are said to be called as species. Okay, so charged species are called ions. Okay, so ang tawag po natin dyan sa mga charged species na yan ay ang tinatawag nating ions. Okay, so ibig sabihin, pag sinabi nating ions, we are actually dealing with the electrons. Okay, so bakit electrons? Yun ang pinakamalaking tanong doon. Bakit? How about the protons and the neutrons? Bakit hindi sila involved doon? Actually, pag sinabi kasi nating ions, we're actually dealing with the electrons. We're in kasi si electrons, siya lang po kasi ang may capability to gain or lose. Anong ibig sabihin po nun? Si electrons lang po, kasi yung mga electron ions natin na yan, sila lang po ang may capability. I'm talking about the electrons. Siya lang po kasi yung may capability na makakuha ng electrons at sila lang din po ang may capability na mag-share o mawalan. Bakit? Kasi kung titignan natin yung structure, recall natin ang structure ng atom as I have discussed yesterday. Di ba kasi ang sabi natin, the electrons are found outside. And these electrons, since it has its own respective orbits, siya lang yung may capability no? Siya lang yung may capability na tumanggap ng kapwa electrons na galing sa ibang substance at siya lang din yung may capability magbigay, mag-share or mag-lose ng kapwa niya electrons. Okay? Kasi dahil nga sa nasa labas siya ng nucleus. As compare mo sa protons at saka neutrons, nandun lang kasi siya sa loob mismo nung tinatawag nating nucleus. So, the main story here is electrons. So, ibig sabihin, if we're going to compute for the ions itself, no, ang gagawin lang natin is sa electrons lang po tayo maggagalaw. Okay? So, I'm going to introduce to you again the two concepts behind this ion. Okay? So, ito po yun. Yan, okay. So, let's start with the first concept. So, according to Silyanko, so this concept of losing electrons, so take note of that, the species becomes positively charged. Okay, so less electrons than the protons. Okay, so bigyan ko kayo ng example ha. So, ito, katulad nito, I've already discussed this to you. So, ang sabi natin, if sodium has an atomic number of 11 and it has a mass number of 23. Okay, so wala pa tayong charge yan. So ibig sabihin, if you're going to compute for the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons, so definitely, madali lang natin siya i-compute. Kasi bakit? Kasi ang sabi natin, kung 23 po, no? 23 ang mass number natin at ang 11 po natin ay yun ang tinatawag nating okay, yun po yung ating mass ating atomic number. So therefore, our proton will be 11, 11, and then 12. This is a neutral atom. But let us now apply the concept of losing the electrons. Okay, so ibig sabihin, the species becomes positively charged, less electrons than the proton. So paliwanag ko sa inyo yan later. Okay, so what if the sodium has an ion? Yan na, so meron tayong ion. So ang sabi ko nga sa inyo, ang mababago lang po dyan ay yung number ng electron. Kasi siya lang po ang may capability to lose and even gain since siya yung nasa outside ng orbit. Okay? So, kaklaruhin ko lang po yan. So, this is a different case. So, paano natin gagawin yan? So, let us have again this one. Yan. Paano natin gagawin yan? Okay. Let us try to have this concept na para mas madali para sa ating i-compute ito. Meron lang po tayong standard formula na gagamitin. Okay? So this is what I would like to share with you. Now, please take note of this. Okay? So ito po yun. So to get the number of electrons, you have to consider the atomic mass, atomic number, ima-minus lang po natin siya dun sa given na charge. Okay, so balikan natin. Sabi natin kanina, si sodium ay 23 ang mass number, 11 naman yung tinatawag natin atomic number, at meron siya kaninang charge. Okay. Paano natin kukumputin yung number ng protons, yung electrons, at saka ng neutrons? Okay, so using this formula, ibig sabihin, ang gagalawin lang po natin, ang magkakaroon lang ng pagbabago dyan, ay yung electron. Okay, so balikan natin yung concept. Ang sabi natin kanina, kapag ang atomic number mo ay 11, ibig sabihin, ang proton, ang electron ay pareho. Ang neutron mo ay isusubtract mo lang doon sa given na atomic number. And of course, the mass number itself. Now, kung meron siyang ions, ito po yung ions. ia-apply natin itong formula na ito using this electron. So sabi natin kanina, kung ang electron mo ay 11 at meron kang ions na positive 1, using this formula, minus positive 1. Eh, di ba sabi natin, if you're going to multiply different or opposite charges, so automatic minus pa rin yan. So magiging 11 minus 1 is equivalent to 10. Therefore, kung titingnan natin itong itsura niya, no? Ibig sabihin, ano ang mas lamang? Mas lamang ngayon yung number ng protons mo kaysa sa electrons mo. Ito yung sinasabi kong concept of losing electrons. Ibig sabihin, the entire sodium is positively charged by 1. Okay, by 1. Lamang ang protons niya ng 1 kasi nabawasan siya ng isang electron. So, ibig sabihin, pag nagbawas tayo ng electrons, mas lalamang ang kanyang protons. Okay, so ganun lang. Ang lagi lang po nating tatandaan doon is isusubtract lang po natin. Okay, so isusubtract lang po natin. Okay, so this is actually the concept behind it. Okay, so I'm going to give you another example para makita nyo yung kung paano yung other computation. Okay, next one. Okay, so I have here another example. What if the silver is like this? So if the silver is neutral, so therefore, ang ating proton, electron, and neutron is equal to 47, 47. Now, isusubtract lang natin si 108 sa 47, so this will give us 61. So neutral atom pa lang po ito ha. Pero what if ito po yan? What if charge din po yung charge ions din po si silver? Okay. Yan, paano kung charge ions naman siya? So, ang sabi ko nga kanina, ang gagalawin lang po natin ay yung electron. Okay, so paano gagawin natin? So, P, E, N. Okay, so sabi natin, para mas madali lang sa atin, ang ating atomic number ay 47. So, 47, 47, and then 61. Pero sabi natin, meron siyang charge ions na positive 1, ma-minusan natin siya ng 1. So 47 minus 1 will give us, yes, Darwin, it's 46. Ibig sabihin po ng konsepto na ito, mas madami ang protons niya. Kasi 47 yung protons niya, nabawasan ng electrons niya. So therefore, this charged ions of silver becomes more positively charged. Kasi lamang siya ng isa yung proton eh. So ibig sabihin, si silver is now considered as a positive element ng 1, no? Ng 1 proton kasi mas lamang ang number ng protons niya which is 47 nabawasan ng isa ng electrons. So yun yung pinaka-konsepto when we're talking about losing electrons. Okay? So next, I'm going to have another example para at least you have several examples. Ma'am, pag plus sign minus, ayun, yan. I'm going to have that another concept, yung tinatawag nating gaining electrons naman. Okay, so sasagutin ko yung tanong mo, Batalya, later. Okay, so next. Okay, how about silicon? So this is silicon. So pag neutral siya, okay. So kapag neutral siya, P, E, N. Okay, PEN tayo. So ibig sabihin nito, pag PEN, so we have 14, 14, and then isusubtract lang natin, it's 14 also. Pero what if meron charge ions? Paano kung charge ions naman si silicon? So kung meron siyang charge ions na 4, paano naman ang mangyayari sa kanya? So ito yon, P, E, N. So sabi natin kanina, it's 14, 14, 14. 14, 14, and then 14. Ang gagalawin natin, since meron siyang positive ions dito, ma-minusan natin siya ng 4. So therefore, 10 na lang po ang electrons natin. 10. Okay, so ibig sabihin po, si silicon is positively charged by 4 ions kasi mas lamang ang protons niya, which is 14. Ang electrons niya ay nabawasan ng 4, naging 10 na lang. So that makes silicon positively charged ions or positively charged particle. Nakuha? Okay, so ito po yung pinaka-main concept doon in losing electrons. Now, ito yung tanong ni Batalya. Yan. Ito ngayon yung tanong ni Batalya. What if, sabi niya, what if the concept now is gaining electrons? Ibig sabihin, you are making the species or the element itself becomes negatively charged. Ibig sabihin, mas marami naman ang electrons niya kaysa sa protons. Okay? So, I'm going to give you an example. Okay. So, let's have the neutral one. So, ito yung ginagamit natin example kanina. If it is neutral, ang ating oxygen, so we keep on computing this earlier. So, ang sabi natin, proton. Kung ang proton mo, okay, or I'm sorry, if your atomic number is 8, definitely your proton and electron are the same as 8. Okay? The same thing with the neutron kasi isusubtract lang natin yung mass number to its atomic number. Okay, so this is the neutral atom. Bakit neutral? Kasi wala siyang ions na nakikita sa kanya. Ngayon, ano ngayon? Ito. Yan. What if there is a negatively charged ions present on the oxygen? I-apply mo pa rin yung formulang binigay ko sa inyo. But this time, it's a different one. Okay, so ganito po siya. What if negative 2? Okay, so P, E, N. Okay. So sabi natin, 8, 8, 8. Yan. Kaso, ito po ang twist ngayon. Sabi natin kanina, electron ang gagalawin natin. Minus, ano ba yung given na charge? Negative. So, ilalagay niyo siya dito as negative 2. Okay, so alam ko naman tinuturo ni Sir Layagi ito, di ba? So sabi natin, if subtraction, di ba? Ima-minus natin siya sa isang negative ion. So therefore, this will become positive. Kasi multiplication po ito, di ba? Pag multiply po natin sila together, since they have the same charges, so pareho silang negative, so this will become positive. Okay, so yun lang po ang tatandaan natin. Kapag negative siya, nagiging positive, magiging addition na po siya. So therefore, 8 plus 2 will become 10. Therefore, using this concept of gaining electrons, ibig sabihin, mas marami ang number ng electrons niya as compare mo sa proton. So therefore, you are making the oxygen negatively charged by 2 ions. Ibig sabihin, mas lamang ang electrons niya kasi nagdagdag ka ng dalawang electrons o nadagdagan ng dalawang electrons si oxygen. So yun naman po yung pinaka-twist natin for the second part in gaining. So ibig sabihin, kung may negative ka dito, minus, ibig sabihin magiging addition naman po siya. Okay, so that's why we actually get the concept of gaining the electrons. Okay, so next, I'll give you another example para at least klaro sa atin. Okay, we have chlorine. In a neutral atom, sabi natin, neutral. So wala tayong ions na present. Okay, so therefore, sabi natin dito, we just simply copy the number of the atomic number, 17, 17, and then isubtract lang po natin to 35, 17 will give us 18. Okay, but What if there is an ion present? Yan. Paano kung may ion present since negative po ang given natin? Diba? So, proton, electron, and neutron. Using the formula that I gave you earlier, so we have 17, 17, 18. Okay, so ang sabi natin kanina, minus negative 1. Therefore, magiging addition na po siya. Okay, there's a question siguro. Yes, okay, tama, Darwin. So magiging 18 na siya, which is parang the same na rin siya dun sa number of neutrons natin. So therefore, mas lamang ang number ng electrons ni chlorine ng isa na electron as compared kay proton na 17 lang. That only means that the chlorine is negatively charged particle of one electron. Ibig sabihin na dagdagan siya ng electron ng isa at ang proton niya ay nag-remain the same lang as 17. Nakatulad lang din ng kanyang atomic number. Okay? So, yun po yun. Okay? So, yun po yun. So, at least you have already the idea on how to lose the electrons and gain the electrons. Now, this will now be your activity.